the Mayor of the host city of Durban, Honorable James Ngumalo, the co-chairs of AIDS 2016, Dr. Chris Breyer and Professor Olive Chisano, Executive Director of UNAIDS, Mr. Michel Sidibe, and indeed the entire UN family. Ministers of the South African Cabinet who are here, especially Minister Jeff Radebe, who has worked very hard to put this conference together, Minister Naledi Pandor, and indeed Minister of Health, Dr. Motsoaledi, and other deputy ministers who are also here. I also greet government officials. I greet our traditional leaders who are also here, leaders of civil society, members of the diplomatic corps, and I extend my greetings to our First Lady, Mrs. Zuma. I want to extend a special word of welcome and greeting to the champions for an AIDS-free generation, our former heads of government, especially former President as well as Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe, who is a champion, former President Pohamba of Namibia, who is a champion, former President Banda of Malawi, who is a champion, former President Chisano of Mozambique, who is a champion, former President Festus Mogae, don't know whether he's finally arrived from South Sudan. And I'd like to extend my greetings also to Constitutional Court Judge Edwin Cameron, who is also one of our champions. The other champions who could not be here is former President Kenneth Kaunda, former President Konare, Mkapa, Obasanjo, Wandira Kasibye, and Miriam Were. Now I single them out because, and pay special greetings and tribute to them, because these champions for an AIDS-free generation do diligent work silently on the quiet. They are a distinguished group of former presidents and influential Africans, leaders, and they are committed to making sure that on the African continent we have an AIDS-free generation. Let us give them a strong round of applause for the wonderful work that they do. Good evening to all of you. It's wonderful to be here and to see so many of you as delegates to this conference. It is indeed an honor and a privilege for our country, South Africa, to once again host the International AIDS Conference. It is fitting that we meet to open this conference on this very special day, Nelson Mandela International Day, a day on which we honor the memory of Nelson Mandela, our first president and our icon. This is really a day of service, dedicated to service, solidarity, and the betterment of the human condition. It is fitting that we meet again in this city, the city of Durban, which is a very special city for historic events that have an impact on humanity. This is how the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, when he was here earlier, characterized Durban. He said, "It is in this city where the lives of humanity in a number of ways have been determined and have also changed." So this is a very special city, and that is why we welcome you to this very warm, wonderful city, beautiful in many, many ways, a city by the coast. And I hope you take time to enjoy yourself here in this very special city. We're meeting again in this city where at the International AIDS Conference in the year 2000, Nelson Mandela declared that a tragedy of unprecedented proportions was unfolding in Africa. He expressed his deep pain about the devastating extent of the AIDS epidemic when he said, "The challenge is to move from rhetoric to action, and action at an unprecedented intensity and scale." Since then, much has happened in our country, on our continent, and indeed across the world. We meet here tonight with a far greater understanding of the proportions of the tragedy that Nelson Mandela spoke of. We have all been touched by this epidemic. Many lives have been lost as it has affected ordinary people. Their families have been torn apart, communities have been distressed, livelihoods have been lost, and children have been orphaned. This epidemic has had a truly devastating impact on the quality of life of millions of people around the world. There are countries like South Africa where HIV has fundamentally changed the burden of disease, where it has significantly altered the expectancy of life, where it has also depleted health resources and put social support system under extreme and extraordinary strain. This epidemic has changed our world. At the same time, this epidemic has also changed us. The struggle to end AIDS has galvanized the global community in an unprecedented way. It has provoked the sense of international solidarity and a sense of common purpose. This virus has challenged all of us. It has required of us that we reconsider many of the beliefs that we long held to be true. It has made us confront our prejudices. We have had to change the way we respond to epidemics. Countries have had to redirect resources from other areas of critical need to address this new challenge. And as this virus has required a comprehensive response, we have had to mobilize international agencies, governments, religious leaders, traditional leaders, the media, donors, communities, and more importantly, individuals who confront HIV on a daily basis in their own lives. For many countries, as with many individuals, this has been a long journey beset with a number of setbacks, with a number of challenges, as well as a number of triumphs. For many, it has been a journey from indifference, denial, and intransigence to accepting and confronting directly the truths about this epidemic. Over the years, the international AIDS conferences have been the forums that have borne witness to this journey that has been traversed by the world. These conferences have advanced our understanding of the epidemic. They have also raised our level of consciousness. They have also provoked us and challenged our misconceptions. Yet, at the same time, they have inspired us, giving us hope, giving us innovative ways of dealing with the epidemic. For it is at these conferences where we get people who get together to debate and discuss a number of issues. And they have enabled us to travel a great distance. As we meet here today, I wish to pay tribute, and a special tribute, to the many courageous individuals and organizations in this country, my country, South Africa, and across the world, who persistently fought for the right to treatment and never, ever gave up. I pay tribute to you. And I should also say that I also pay tribute to the judiciary, because the judiciary in our country has also been a fellow traveler in all this, as they have had to interpret our Constitution, where government was a bit slow in acting. The judiciary has stepped in and raised our national lodestar, which is our Constitution, and have said, this is what you are required to do, to give life to the people of South Africa who are affected. The success we have achieved in the treatment of people living with HIV in this country, in particular, is largely due to the work done by these individuals, these organizations working together with government. So I pay tribute to you, and I thank you for all the work that you have done. South Africa now provides 3.4 million people who are HIV positive with antiretroviral treatments. This is the biggest program as we have had of any single country, and I think it is such a powerful statement to the world about the government's determination to save lives. And I think it deserves a good round of applause. And I also stand here to affirm the unwavering commitment of the South African government to work with all sections of our society and with all our development partners to ensure that no person should die from a condition that can now be effectively treated. This is a commitment we make. The struggle against HIV and AIDS has been and still is a struggle for a better society. It is a struggle for a society in which the human rights and dignity of all people are recognized and respected. We desire a society in which men do not claim dominion over women, a society in which the powerful do not prey on the vulnerable. We want to live in a society where there is no shame in having a virus, in being ill, or in seeking treatment. That is the type of society that we want to live in. We aspire to a society in which the circumstances of one's birth, one's social status or income level is no impediment to quality health services and social support. We want a society in which all have shelter, water, food, and the prospects for a better life. We must have a society in which adolescent girls complete their schooling, where young women from poor backgrounds progress to higher education and into meaningful employment. We desire that these young women should have control over their own bodies and are able to make informed choices about their sexual behavior. People who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or intersex should be able to live in a society where they need not fear discrimination, stigmatization, or even persecution. It is a society in which sex workers, intravenous drug users, and other vulnerable groups have access to support, to testing, to counseling, and indeed to treatment as well. Our ideal and desired society is one in which everyone, men and women alike, take responsibility for their well-being and the well-being of others. As we gather at this 21st International AIDS Conference, we are bound to recall the moving plea of an 11-year-old young boy, Nkosi Johnson, who Michelle Sidibe says his spirit is truly amongst us. When he made his plea for treatment for children like him living with HIV. Within these walls, over the next few days, we will discuss and debate and interrogate our response to Nkosi Johnson's plea. We will need to dissect that plea and fully understand what his plea was all about. As we discuss and debate the work that has been done worldwide on HIV by scientists, by health workers, by activists, by governments, developmental agencies, and community-based organizations, we are bound to acknowledge that great progress has indeed been made. The world has surpassed its own global treatment targets by initiating 17 million people on antiretroviral treatment. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a phenomenal achievement which we should not dismiss. Of these, 20% live in South Africa. We have dramatically reduced the transmission of HIV from mother to child. In 2004, there were 70,000 babies born HIV positive in this country. Today, this has been reduced to less than 6,000 children born HIV positive. Across the world, fewer people are dying from AIDS-related causes. At this conference, we will hear the debate, the advances, how far we have advanced in terms of research. We will hear about better drugs, about strategies that have reduced the rates of infection and improved access to treatment. But we will also hear that the struggle is far from over. We will hear that there is still much more to be done. In the face of this, we dare not be complacent. Michel Sidibe says he is fired up. In fact, we should just all be on fire as we confront this epidemic. We know that the rates of infection are not declining as rapidly as we would like them to decline. We know that adolescent girls as well as young women are particularly at risk. Their vulnerability derives from social attitudes and economic circumstances. In South Africa, each week we have an estimated 2,000 new infections in adolescent girls and young women that are aged between 15 and 24 years. We know that our inability to effectively reach key populations who are at increased risk of HIV infection is perpetuating their marginalization. Our failure to reach them is hampering our efforts to decisively reduce the spread of this epidemic. We know that in the many parts of the world, we face the danger of losing the battle against tuberculosis as rates of HIV co-infection rise. We are hopeful that this conference will guide us on the next leg of our journey. We expect this conference to expand the frontiers of our scientific knowledge, including finding new ways of changing sexual behavior amongst people. The contributions made here must deepen our understanding of the many facets of this epidemic and strengthen our resolve to defeat it. We look to this conference in the end to send a very clear message, an unequivocal message to the world that we are determined and we do have the resolve to triumph. We can say with a measure of confidence that never before have we understood so clearly what we need to do in order to win the fight against the epidemic. We are, ladies and gentlemen, at a point of inflection. Our actions now will determine whether the gains of the last few years can be sustained and whether they can also be deepened. At the center of our efforts must be a global commitment to massively and purposefully expand the resources dedicated to HIV prevention and treatment. Money must be made available to make us succeed in this fight. We must do this now so that we can save lives, ensure access for all, and dramatically and decisively curb the rate of new infections. We can do this if we have the resources to embark on this new trajectory of our journey. If we delay, if we even hesitate for a minute, we risk reversing the gains we have already made to date. Even as many countries confront economic difficulties, we must not slow down. The long-term economic benefits of investing in HIV prevention and the treatment will be far greater than the cost to the fiscus today. Multilateral agencies working with the global health community have set bold targets that will require every ounce of our energy. The 90-90-90 strategy for HIV and TB is a bold vision we must be determined to realize. We must always focus on the two diseases as they are two sides of the same coin. We must never for 1 minute just focus on one. These are the two diseases we must focus on because they occur and belong together. The work ahead, ladies and gentlemen, requires courage, it requires commitment and leadership from every one of us. It also requires action from every institution in society and from the global community of nations. It requires that we be more innovative, more collaborative, as well as be more imaginative. We call on scientists, and we have a number of them here, researchers, and they are here, and those who fund research to sustain the intensity of effort that has brought us this far. We ask them to strive to reach beyond what we believe is possible today. The scale of the task before us does require that we draw on the most potent means we have to fight this epidemic: human action. In a world given to cynicism, in a world riven by disease, inequality, and poverty, it is the revolutionary capacity of human action that sustains our confidence in each generation. As science advances, as we find more effective treatments, as we draw nearer to a vaccine, we know that ultimately it is only through collective global action that we will be able to succeed. If we all act together, we can triumph against the HIV epidemic. It is within us to change our behavior. We can confront and defeat unequal gender relations, prejudice, and stigma. We have it in us to reach out to those within our society who have for long been on the margins, unable to affirm their rights, unable to seek protection of the state, unable to access treatment and support with regard to the means of prevention. We must deal with the social attitudes that discourage men from testing for HIV, being screened for TB, and being initiated on treatment. It is through human action that we will end this epidemic. It is by taking action that we will build better, more equal, more just societies in which all live long and very healthy lives. It is through human action at an unprecedented intensity, as Nelson Mandela said, within the space of the next few years, that we will turn despair into hope and tragedy into triumph. 16 years ago, many achievements we talk about today just seemed impossible. 22 years ago, many believed that apartheid was an intractable problem. South Africans collectively triumphed and defeated a system that the UN declared a crime against humanity. As our national icon Nelson Mandela once said, it all seems impossible until it is done. Allow me to conclude with the words of Nkosi Johnson, who said, as he stood here, "Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. It is indeed in our hands." I'd like to thank you, and as I thank you, let us remember what Nkosi Johnson said to all of us. Thank you very much.